not peacekeeping.
No, that's it.
When you're in.
Well, right after the Liberal caucus meets in Saguenay, Quebec, as their Liberals are dealing with all those allegations about expenses, a huge announcement that we've been waiting for a long time. 4 ministers come out, the Minister of Defense, Public Safety, Global Affairs, and the Minister of Development, and they announce basically $500 million, $450 million will go to the military, and another about 50 will go to police for something called the Peace and Stabilization Operations Program. It's not peacekeeping, it's stabilization and their operations. What do you make of this announcement?
Well, 2 things. It's the ante for Canada being at the table at an upcoming UN conference on international peacekeeping. So that's the first thing. We had to do this.
In other words, it's a pay to play.
Yeah, it's in a couple of weeks we wouldn't have a seat at the table if we'd have some money on the table. Now we've got some money on the table. And then it's the word stabilization that I find interesting. It's the one you hear more from Minister Sajjan, the defense minister. People should know it's not peacekeeping. We're talking about unstable African countries for the most part. Mali, for example, there were peacekeepers killed there in May and June. This is not, blue beret, feel-good stuff. This is tough, possibly dangerous stuff.
Yeah, and it was interesting that Romeo Dallaire was on those missions with Sajjan. The idea that we're back, which is what the Liberals like to say, we're not back to that old peacekeeping. That went away.
Cyprus, right?
No, it's not Cyprus, and Louis Mackenzie in the Balkans was very clear. Those days are gone, and I think the same with Romeo Dallaire. And it was interesting during the press conference that the word was used, would you go into high intensity places?
Yeah, that was interesting.
And Sajjan used that, the Minister of Defense.
That doesn't sound good to me.
No, well, it means that they talk about.
It's maybe what Canada should be doing. When I say it doesn't sound good,
but it means that they could be in firefights. I mean, and he didn't say, nope, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
They'll work with existing missions, but a lot of those, as you say, those existing missions get real hot.
Yeah.
So we're about to put up to 600 boots on the ground in locations to be determined, but in tough places.
Yeah.
One question on that. That means we've got 500 in Latvia, tripling the number of the boots in Iraq, now 600
in Ukraine.
Trudeau in the first year has put more boots on the ground than Harper did.
It's true. It's one of these things where the party brand cliches just do not play.
Right.
They do not play. Harper, remember, early on in his time, a year into being prime minister, he wanted to he started talking about, let's get out of Afghanistan. He was not really a warlike prime minister. He often didn't like the sounds of it.
And suddenly, and this will play out, because if the economy's slowing and there's going to be great pressures on Bill Morneau to do more for the, to stimulate the economy, but look at the military budget. You're going to have these 600, the 500 in Latvia. They're going to keep those trainers in Ukraine. They're going to triple the number in.
That's operations you're talking about. We have the whole procurement side of the file, which is also enormously costly that has to be dealt with. So defense is expensive.
And of course, Trudeau goes to China, and one of the issues that experts have called for is you've got to have a naval presence in the Pacific.
Yeah.
And that raises the question, you've got to pay for a Navy. So this announcement starts. The dominoes start to fall. But we mentioned Stephen Harper, and did you see that video? He put out about a minute, 30-second video, and he's leaving politics after 18 years.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from him in a different way in an interview. I'd like to interview him, I'm sure you would. 3 things I'd like to say about Stephen Harper, though. He talked about tax policy. Nobody talks about reversing his GST cuts. He talks about family policy. The Liberals used to mock the idea of monthly payments to parents, but they built their whole Canada child benefit around that model that Harper really pioneered in a way. And he talked about security and sort of safety in the streets. The Liberals are very tentative about rolling back in of his mandatory minimum penalties. There are many elements of the Harper legacy that are quite intact.
And I should say one more that's a really big one. The targets that he put on climate change targets have not been moved by the Liberals either.
They reaffirmed those targets in Paris.
So that's been interesting. I would say this. First of all, we always tip our hat to anyone who serves the public, whatever party they're from. It was just interesting to me that here we are almost a year out from the election. And I understand for history purposes, you might want to put out a video and say your thank you. Very dignified, I thought, very elegant.
Fine.
But then take the tie off, put on the golf shirt, and maybe this is the moment to take a couple questions, to have a discussion. What might you have done differently? What do you think? Let us talk to you a bit about your legacy. It's been a year. It's okay. Instead, as always, goes over the top of the media.
Yeah, true.
All right, that's all we've got for this week, a big week of news.